Hi, folks. This is Rick Doc Walker, the DOC.
This is John Kime, and you're listening to the Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mess Hall. It's your boy Tailgate Ted again, joined as always by my man Rally Captain.
What's up, everybody? Here we are at it again, and I'm here to tell you we've got one more week left before it goes down. Let's get it, Ted.
Man, it's speaking of weeks, it's been a crazy 72 hours in Commanderland. There's been a lot going on, but before we jump right into it, I want to thank everybody that subscribed again. I know we talk about it every week, but all of y'all that subscribed, downloaded, listened, left a review, all of that helps. And let me tell you why. Rally and I have a new sponsor that's coming on board for the entire football season. We're excited to announce them, but you got to listen next week. So next week, we're going to drop a new segment. We're going to announce our sponsor. We're going to give them some props. These guys signed up. They read the reviews. They saw all of your guys' comments. They saw all of your likes. And when we said it helps out, it really, really does. And we're taking that money and we're investing it back in the show. So we really appreciate it. If you haven't had a chance to, do us a favor, hit subscribe, hit download, hit like, tell your friends, because we're working on bringing a couple more sponsors on, and it's going to do nothing but help us out. So we really appreciate it.
And once again, I'm not going to prolong it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Now, we really do thank you all. But jumping into it, it's obviously been a crazy past couple of days for the Commanders. They were in Baltimore for that Ravens game on Saturday. I admittedly did not watch the game live. It's my wife's birthday, so we went out to dinner, and then I stayed up and watched the replay at 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure I sat through all that. And thank God the NFL gives you a condensed replay option to cut out commercials and timeouts, because that was a painful game to watch. I can't imagine how bad it was watching live, man.
Well, I watched it live, Ted, and it wasn't that bad, man. It really wasn't. And I'll tell you why it wasn't that bad for me. It wasn't that bad for me because I saw, once again, man, effort, dude. And we came this close to breaking that imaginary streak, if you will. And I got to tell you, man, a couple plays here or there, we would have broken that streak. So I saw a lot of effort, man. And that's what I want to see. I wanted to see that. I wanted to see, what are they going to do? You know, you're on the bubble, basically. And what type of effort were you going to put forth? And I saw that effort. And let's face it, a lot of guys made the team because of that effort. And obviously, some guys did not because of the lack of effort. So, well, what did you think?
I saw some good stuff from Sam Howell. I saw some potential from him. I saw stuff that I've been seeing all at camp that tells me he's going to be QB2 next season. And no offense to Heineke, but I can't see him coming back next year because he's got no more time on his contract. This is it for him. And why would you pay him, other than you get him on the cheap, but why would you have a roster spot for him if Howell can come in? And Rivera actually told Heineke during the game, you might want to start warming up, because Howell was taking a couple hits he didn't need to take, but he was playing like he plays. He just goes all out 110%. And I was shocked to see how elusive he was in the pocket. I was shocked to see him break some of those tackles. And the only downside of watching that condensed replay is I got stuck listening to the Ravens announcers and not Doc, and hearing them talk about how escaping from the talons of that defender, I wanted to throw up every time. But I mean, it was actually fun to watch him run around and do what he did on that field, knowing that he can't do that in the regular season because he's going to get his head knocked off.
Hey, man, the cat's got a set of wheels on him, and he's got that oomph. You know, a lot of people call that moxie. I liked it. Now, like you said, did he need to take those hits? No, he didn't. But at the same time, he took those hits. Do you know what it's doing for his self-esteem as well as the team's self-esteem and the line and the fact that, hey, this is a preseason game, but this guy almost is laying it all on the line. People like to see that, and they will fight for you knowing that you are putting it on the line, albeit a preseason game.
Definitely. And I think that's part of the reason why, in my eyes, if all goes well and Carson doesn't S himself, and Carson's QB1 again next season because he's still under contract, team has a parachute, though, to get out of that contract where it won't cost him anything. That's why I see Howell moving up to 2. And he's a steal as a 5th-round pick. So that was maybe the most exciting thing I saw out of that game, other than the fact that that means preseason's over. The fat lady sung, and now we're finally here at the regular season.
Oh, yeah. She has definitely got her vocals together, and she's now getting ready for week 17. But we can't fast forward that far. The fat lady she's in the booth, and she's warming up for week 17. But we are going to just stick right now with week 1.
Man, speaking of week 1 and everything getting ready for the season, before we jump into that, if you're listening to this show, if you're watching the podcast, we know you know what happened to Brian Robinson. I mean, how can you not? And
right.
I was actually hanging out at the beach, and I saw something pop up on my Twitter timeline, and I've never joined a Twitter space before. I don't understand them. Maybe it's because I'm old. I decided to join one. And the title of it was Brian Robinson's Shot. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're talking about him being RB1. They're talking about his shot at actually doing something with this squad. I had no idea until I listened for maybe 2 minutes that they were legitimately talking about Brian Robinson being shot. And one of the jackasses on that space, and I tell it to this guy's face, was complaining about how it affected his fantasy football team. I immediately jumped out of it before I said anything, because that right there is why I don't play fantasy football. Just the ignorance of some of these fans and some of these people making jokes about how Antonio Gibson called a hit on Robinson and pulled a Tanya Harding and this and that, while you've got this young man who was literally just driving in Northeast DC, went to go get something to eat. And from what I heard, it was at a crab place that I've actually been at. I live in Northeast DC, about 2.5 miles from where everything happened, at 5 p.m. on a Sunday. And Brian was a victim of an attempted carjacking. And I couldn't believe it, man.
Nah, man, I couldn't believe it either. And I got to tell you, I was basically watching, what was I watching? I think I was watching last week's DVR of 60 Minutes. So I'm watching 60 Minutes on the DVR, and I don't cuss. For those of you who know me, I don't cuss, and it's very few and far between that I do cuss. And I saw my phone, and I said, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. And my wife, she said, what happened? She thought something had happened to a family member, and I said, Robinson just got shot. And immediately, I'm sure like you, the only thing I could think of was Sean Taylor. And I said, oh, man, please, not again. Not again. And so let's face it, we're not going to harp on it, but with prayer and with everyone coming together, the young man has a possibility of possibly playing maybe week 3. Can you believe that?
I mean, the team had to go through their 53-man roster, and he's on the 53-man roster. But for some of you that don't know, if you're moved to the NFI list, you actually have to make the 53-man roster. So they had to initially put him on the 53, and they can still move him if they need to the NFI list. But the good news is, like you said, he seems to be okay. I mean, he wrestled the gun away from one of the assailants, and then there were 2 suspects that came up to him. The other one shot him, and I've heard 2 different reports. One was on John Keim, and I know John, I trust John. John said it
Yeah.
hit his glute and his lower leg. There was another report that said it was his hip and his knee. But B-Rob put up a Instagram story on Monday saying that the surgery went well and he was good. Then on Tuesday, and for those of you that don't know, it's Wednesday, August 31st at 4:05, Riley and I are recording this. On Tuesday, B-Rob was at the facility when the team had to make their cuts, meeting with the team doctors so they can do their evaluation, but more importantly, being there with his teammates. And the rookies all have to stock the snack room to make sure that you've got snacks for meetings and this and that. And he hobbles in on 2 crutches with his leg bandaged up, and he's got a package of Oreos with the biggest smile on his face, man. And Brian Mitchell actually talked about how he started crying when he saw that picture. And I'm right there with him because I immediately thought of Sean. And when the tragedy happened with Sean, I drove out to Ashburn, I drove out to Redskins Park, and we had a candlelight vigil. There were maybe 30 of us out there, and we were all praying for Sean. We were all sharing stories about how we've met him and just the person he is. And we ended up leaving Ashburn that night because we heard that Sean moved his hand or something at that point and showed a sign that he was, responsive.
Promise. Yeah, promise. A little bit of promise. Yeah.
Head back home, fast forward through the night, I get a phone call from a friend that worked at NBC, and he told me what happened before it actually hit. And I, honest to God, I threw up. And I immediately jumped back in my car and went back up to Ashburn, and we had, working with a couple different pastors, we had just thousands of people show up, and we had another candle vigil for Sean. But at that point, it was because he had passed. And I couldn't help, and I know a lot of us in Burgundy and Gold couldn't help but think of Robinson got shot in the leg. Sean got shot in the leg. How close is this to his femoral artery? The fact that we have to worry about these things as a fan base, we know what a femoral artery is, not because we watched ER, but because one of our favorite players and stalwarts of this franchise passed away because he was shot in the leg during a robbery. And TMZ then came out with a video that they obtained, and I have no idea how these guys get their stuff, but it showed Brian sitting on basically the ground on the sidewalk in H Street, and he seemed to be okay. And you immediately felt a little bit better about the situation, and you could kind of take a collective deep breath because Coach obviously sent his tweet out and this and that, but Coach also said that the starters were going to play against the Raven, and really it was just Jamin Davis that played. So I don't really believe what he tells me half the time, or maybe 2/3 of the time.
Well, I got to tell you, man, and this is and I didn't know this until you just said it, and maybe other people did know it. But one thing that you said that really shows me that the young man is where he needs to be. I didn't know that was the day for rookies to bring in snacks. And the mere fact that he had that pack of Oreos in his hand, and I was saying to myself, okay, is that his nickname, Oreo? That's his favorite treat while he's down? What's the deal? I didn't know that it was their day to bring in snacks. And the mere fact that he had the wherewithal to bring those snacks in and he's still dedicated, that's what I like to hear, man. And I'm kind of like B. Mitch. I'm not going to cry on screen. But once we get off this Zoom, I may shed a tear, brother, because that means a lot. And the mere fact, once again, it's the little things that you do. It's the little things. Everybody always says, what did you do? Little things like that make people want to rally behind you even more.
Oh,
I love it.
And when he does come back, whether it's week 3, whether it's week 6, whatever it may be, whenever he is 100% physically and mentally ready to come back and step on that field, I hope that they announce him last out of that tunnel, because that entire stadium, and I don't care what color you're wearing, will be rooting and cheering for that kid because he earned himself RB1. that was his position. And it was taken away from him by two teenagers just doing something wrong. And it just reminds me of why I don't watch ESPN, because of what they called Sean and how they basically try to pin this on Sean when everything happened to him, just jumping to conclusions. And knowing that Brian was just there grabbing lunch downtown, just eating some crabs, whatever it was, just in the wrong place at the wrong time, to have that potentially his dream taken away from him, man, I cannot wait to see him actually step on that field wearing burgundy and gold or whatever that white jersey is.
Yeah, can't wait. I second that, bro. I'm ready. I'm ready.
But jumping into it, Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network actually had this clip talking about it yesterday. And I was dumbfounded when I heard it. Let me play that for you real quick.
Brian Robinson, the Commanders running back, out of the hospital, doing relatively well considering what has happened the last couple of days for him. First of all, lucky to be alive. We have said that. We've made that clear. That's number one. Number two, sounds like he's very fortunate from a football standpoint with the impact of the bullet that hit him in the knee. Apparently missed all of the major parts of the knee. Ligaments, tendons, bone, went through his knee and somehow did not create massive damage. Now, the timeline for Brian Robinson is still TBD. He is on the active roster. Andrew, you talked about the Commanders already getting down to their 53-man roster. He's on the active roster. He was not placed on the non-football injury list or anything like that that would knock him out for the first 4 weeks. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be back within that window. It's just the Commanders, I am told, are keeping their options open with him. But there is the potential that he could be back sooner than a lot of people thought. Brian Robinson, very fortunate that he did not suffer massive damage in that knee when that bullet went through there. Great news for him.
Yeah, I mean, we're going over way too long now, but I'm happy for the kid. I'm excited. And I'm excited that right now, as of today, he's not on that NFI list. Because if he does get put on the NFI list, that just means that he has to miss 4 weeks. So the fact that right now, as of today, he's not missing those 4 weeks means he could come back sooner, which just means that injury might not be as bad. And if it was a through and through and there really was no damage, like Garafolo said, then I'm excited about him touching that field and what this offense can do. But in the meantime, we did have to let go of some people. So the team had to let go and get down to 53 players from the 80 that they had the other day. And they let go of a bunch of guys. I really don't want to go through all of these players just because there's a ton on this list. But a couple that stand out to me, and you let me know if you were surprised by a couple of these. One being Kalik Hudson. We were thin at linebacker. He was a 2020 pick. I thought he would still stick around. And the other being Jarrett Patterson. I know a lot of fans were surprised that he was let go. I was touting all over Twitter that I don't see Patterson making this squad. We talked about it during a couple episodes ago that he was RB5. He was behind Jonathan Williams. So people were going back and forth like, what are you talking about? Patterson this, Patterson that. This is when Ashburn syndrome kicks in at almost its worst, because you've got guys on our squad that people think are all-stars, but in actuality, you just want them to be because he's a local boy or he did well during a game here and a game there. And I remember seeing people on Twitter saying, oh man, you see Patterson, he's in that Ravens game and he's just tearing them up. He's doing that against guys that aren't even in the league now. So yes, he's tearing them up, but those guys are going to be bagging groceries, and not to knock them, it's just a fact. I mean, were you surprised by any of the cuts that the team made just to get down to that 53?
I actually was surprised at Patterson. And I'm going to take out the fact that I like him and the fact that he's a hometown kid. What I like about Patterson is the little guy's motor always churns. The feet continue to move. He picks up his blocking assignments. That's what I like. And to me, he's versatile. He can catch the ball if needs be. So that did surprise me. And I'm not sure if it's because of his size. Are they just not counting him out? or what did they see that we didn't see? I always say, hey, the coaches are with them all the time versus us fans on a limited time. So obviously they saw something what made him drop a little bit versus be at the top. As far as the linebacker position is concerned, that does surprise me because we need linebackers. And I don't want to talk about another team, but the fact that you got other teams who seem to go out and get exactly what they need, whereas we go around for some reason. And we know that we're at a deficit at linebacker. Now, Rivera did say that we're not done yet. So maybe they've got someone that they're looking at who they want to bring in. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe you have, but I haven't. And because of that, that's where I'm just like,
So we did pick up a couple of players. I'll go over that in a minute. But what was also odd was we kept 5 tight ends. And I just heard that one of those tight ends is probably going to go to IR with designation to return. I think that's going to be Hodges. But they kept 5 tight ends. Part of that is because Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, John Bates are all just getting back to practice after missing some time. And rumor is the team was worried if they cut Rodgers or Hodges that they wouldn't have cleared waivers because they're big body types that a lot of teams don't have, and they would have been collected off of waivers and they wouldn't come back to the practice squad. The other thing I thought was odd was the fact that, like you said, we have 5 linebackers. Other than Davis and Holcomb and Mayo, we've got Eifler and DeJohn Harris. I thought that was kind of weird because I didn't really see a lot of those guys jump out at you during preseason and during practice. But apparently they've done well on special teams, which I know Hudson did too. But I feel it comes down to draft and what happened. And then at cornerback, and granted, this was a couple days ago, we only had 4 corners. You need more than 4 corners on your team. You know, Fuller, William Jackson III, and then you had Benjamin St. Juste, who we know were guaranteed to make this squad. And then Christian Holmes was your 4th corner. The team just claimed off waivers Tariq Fields-Castro from the 49ers and Rashad Wildgoose from the Jets. So these are 2 guys that we just picked up off of waivers. And to me, it was a little telling. None of the guys that we cut were actually picked up by another team. So everyone cleared waivers, and the team has brought a decent amount of those guys back.
Well, you know, Ted, it's twofold. One, a lot of teams, let's face it, still don't look at us the way they need to. So because of that, they're like, we'll pass on that. You know, everybody wants the beauty queen. But we've got some guys who technically I feel can foot the bill if they were put there. So, but a lot of people, man, they like the shiny object. We don't have a lot of shiny objects. We don't. So we don't have the big name, if you will. But I feel as though it still feel it, bro. I still feel it. Maybe it's just I don't want to say Ashburn, but my optimism that Rivera's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. We've got to.
He's got to do something. He said year 3 is really when things should change, and then he kind of backtracked on that when some people asked him, is this playoffs or bust? And I don't blame him for saying he didn't want to answer that question because he doesn't want to put that pressure on his team, but he put that pressure on his team in year 1 when he said he's got a 3-year plan. Well, we can all count. It's year 3.
Yeah.
And a couple people that got moved to that practice squad that we cut, Jarrett Patterson back on that practice squad, Danny Johnson on the practice squad, Corn Elder on the practice squad. So these are guys that we let go that some of the fan base was upset about. Mark and Mitchell, on the practice squad. So I saw talent in these guys. And it might not be because another team didn't want them. Maybe they just don't need them at that particular position because they're more stacked at that position, or they didn't want to put in a waiver claim at that time, changing their waiver claim. But the Jets, the New York Jets, we know how bad they are, had 7 guys claimed that they cut. So to me, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword to a degree because they've been so bad for so long. So they've been getting high draft picks, and maybe some of these high draft picks. It's almost like that girl that dates that guy because she thinks she can change him. Well, maybe some of these other teams are that team that think that they can change these guys because, oh, you were with the Jets. We won't really count that time. We'll pick you up because we can fix you type of thing. But it's just odd to me that none of our guys went anywhere, but yet 7 people from the Jets are now going to be playing someplace else.
Man, I don't know. I don't know, bro. All I can do is just say, okay, all right. But are they an upgrade? Are they an upgrade to what we had? Are they? And I don't know. I'm gonna be, yeah, and I don't know either because I just haven't done my research. It just happened basically 2 hours ago. So I mean I haven't done my research long enough to know what they bring to the table or what they don't. So, but I will say this: forget about it because they're here now. They're a part of the Burgundy and Gold now, and because of that, they got. I'm full in on them, and I will look into it and see what they bring to the table. Obviously, they bring something because we picked them up. I don't think they're going to be camp bodies. They're going to be on the team, so we needed it.
Well, the fact that the team brought them in over just keeping a Danny Johnson and a Corn Elder, because Danny and Corn were here all camp, and Rivera talked about you might bring in a lesser of an athlete versus someone that's on your roster because he might fit your system more. So it comes down to system fit. And what a lot of people were saying, like you said, this just happened, an hour, 2 hours ago. These are man corners versus zone corners. And those that may or may not remember, William Jackson III, when we brought him in from the Bengals, was a man corner, and we tried to turn him into a zone corner. Didn't really work out too well. So is this a sign that Del Rio is getting his head out of his ass and he's going to try and fit the player to the system or the system to the player?
So in other words, maybe that's the Buffalo nickel, maybe.
But one thing that is alarming, and we didn't get a chance to hear Rivera's presser. Speaking of nickel, Cam Curl was on the sideline today in a hoodie with his arm in a sling, and it looked like he had a soft cast on. So no one knows what that's about. The team has not made an announcement about it yet. And I'm hoping he was just playing Madden and got crazy and maybe just has a little carpal tunnel or something. But don't know what it is, and I don't want to speculate. It'll come out hopefully in the next day when Rivera has his presser as to what's going on and how serious this is. But if not, we did bring back another DB who might be able to fill in, Troy Apke. And I'm joking, Mike.
Okay.
I'm not.
Apke, you saw my head drop, huh? You saw my head drop. You just took the life out of me, but then you reanimated me, so I'm back.
He is on the practice squad, though. For some reason, they decided to bring Apke back to the practice squad, and
okay.
I don't get it. I'm not trying to knock Troy, but with the practice squad come rules, and the NFL changed it as recent as last year. You can have 16 players total. But only 6 of those players can be veterans with no limitations. The other players have to have not accrued at least 9 games in the NFL, and up to 4 players have accrued no more than 2 NFL seasons. So we know Apke has played more than 2 NFL seasons. So we are wasting one of those 6 spots for a veteran on the practice squad for this guy. And I, to the life of me, do not know why. And you can protect 4 players on your practice squad each week. I hope that he's not one of the guys that they protect. And Rivera said he's a special team stalwart. I put a video up of it on one of our shows after he got let go. I don't see it, but they see something in him that obviously other teams don't either, because we released him several weeks ago and he's just been sitting out there. And now we just brought him back to the practice squad. So it is an interesting move that they did that. And maybe he and Nate Katzer play tennis together and they're in a doubles tournament this fall. I don't know, but it's just weird to me, man.
Well, maybe what it is the fact that they are familiar with him. Familiarization. Maybe that's what it is.
That's possible. And once again, he knows the system and he knows how to theoretically execute it. So that gives him a chance over someone coming in off the street. I just hope that they're able to find some other talent other than players that we just let go. Because if you tell me we haven't signed any linebackers, and if you tell me that our linebackers who we have now, Eifler, Mayo, Davis, Holcomb, and Harris, are who we're going into the season with, and you feel confident with that, then something's wrong. Because I'm curious, which position group out of all of them, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, do you have the most confidence in right now?
Well, you didn't mention one, and I got a 1-for-1 for you. I'm good to go with Tress Way. I'm good to go with Tress Way. Everyone else, and I'm good to go with Harry. But everyone else, they're on the team. And before I say this, I'm all in 100%, 10 toes in. But we've got question marks. And when you have question marks, you go against your better judgment. But I'm all in. And Harry, we got Tress, and that's sad.
So I'm more so wondering which position group, your specialists, your wide receivers, not particular players. Which group do you have the most confidence in that you don't think we need to make an adjustment, pick up another player?
I have to go over receivers.
Okay.
I have to go over receivers, because to me that's you've got 2 proven. Well, you've got 2.5 proven guys. The other guys are trying to prove themselves based upon their pedigree in college.
So who's the 2?
So, as I said, you got Terry, and I'm going to go with Cam. Cam to me is proven. People don't like Cam. People talk about Cam, but to me, Cam is proven. No, he's not the fastest. But when we have needed a catch, Cam has come through and given us a catch.
And he's also dropped a couple. I mean, I'm not knocking Cam, but when we've needed him to come through a couple times last season, he drops that pass. And I mean, there's a couple I can particularly remember, and I'll cut up and put on the YouTube channel, where it was just right there in his grasp, and he used that body and shielded that defender, and he just flat out dropped it. The only thing that concerns me about Cam right now is he's still in concussion protocol. So because he is not eligible to practice right now, and keep in mind, this is the initial 53-man roster. The roster that is finalized Wednesday next week is going to be your roster for week 1. So this is all in flux. Things are going to change. But right now, from a wide receiver perspective, Cam does me no good because he's out. So it is Jahan and Curtis and Terry, Diami and Dax Mill. One of those guys isn't going to dress, and it's most likely going to be Diami because Dax is your punt returner, and Rivera talked about him maybe doing kick returns, but also Gibson being your kick return. So you're good with those 4 guys for the most part.
I have to be.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Who are you good with?
This is based on the offensive line coach. This is based on who's in charge of that group, but it would have to be the offensive line. And we had Will Montgomery on last week. Thank you again to Will for joining us. But Trey Turner, Norwell, Charles Leno, Chase Roullier, Sam Cosme, I am confident in the offensive line because of what Matt Scow did last season with guys being in and out of that line. Because from a depth perspective, we've got Wes Schweitzer, who we know can play both guard spots and at center. They saw a ton of stuff from Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles. So I feel better about the offensive line. You took wide receivers, who I was going to say. But if I got to pick any other position group on this team, quarterback, well, we all knew it was going to be, Carson. So there's no questions there. Yeah. I'm not confident in running back because AG can't hold on to the ball. He led the league in drops, and he's RB1 because 2 punks decided to shoot up Brian Robinson, or else AG wouldn't be our lead back coming into week 1.
Yeah.
Defensive ends. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the reason why I didn't take the line is because we're going into the season already banged up. And that's what I don't like. And yes, I know Coach will get those guys together. It reminds me of Callahan. Callahan, to me, back in the day, he would get the line together as well when we were pulling guys off the street. But I just don't like the fact that we're going into week 1 and some guys haven't even played a down in preseason yet, man. That scares me. So that's why I went with receiver.
I was worried until we had Will on. And until we started seeing Turner and a bunch of the guys out at practice. They are practicing now. And, hats off to Mitch Tischler for taking a couple of videos of Trey Turner, just blocking guys and just pulling them down the field, pushing down the field another 10, 15 yards. I mean, if it was still camp, I thought there'd be a fight considering how long Turner held that block. But I have faith that those guys can do what they need to do. But which position group are you the most concerned about? Which one do you think we still need to comb that waiver wire or make a trade for, or just do something because you're staying up at night because you don't think they can actually cut it?
Well, I got to tell you, Ted, one thing that really concerns me, and it's no secret, I said it, our defense, man. Our defense still scares me. And what I don't want to hear is, oh, we've got the number 1. I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't. How did that turn up for us last year? We got egg on our face. And I'm still picking it off my face right now. But once again, I'm 10 toes in. So you guys are my boys. You just scare me a little bit. And so because of that, that's what is my difficult answer right now is the defense.
Any particular group on the defense? Like, which one would you pick? Linebackers, safeties, corners?
I'm going to go with linebackers. See, I've got 2, man. It's my front and my linebackers. Those, my front 6, if you will. Those are the ones that are just, I can't go by what you should be able to do or how you were picked. I can't go by that. I go by what's ingrained in my mind. And one thing that's ingrained in my mind is what happened in Dallas. We got cut up. we got carved up. Anything they wanted to do, we could do. They did it to us. So, and then we had guys fighting on the sidelines, and all that stuff is still fresh in my mind. And I'm hoping, I don't even play the game. I'm hoping that it's still fresh in their mind when we play them freaking October the 3rd or October the 2nd, excuse me. I'm hoping it's fresh in their mind and we can go into Jerry World and get some get back. We're due. But that's what really scares me. I'm hoping that these guys can say, you know what? No, man, you need to rush this way, or you need to do it this way, or you need to be able to pick each other up. Because right now, based upon their performance last year, that scares me. Linebacker play.
So I'm not worried about the defensive tackles. The defensive tackles, you're talking John Allen, Deron Payne, Federian Mathis, and Daniel Wise. I'm not worried about John. We know John gives 110%. I mean, he even gave it to Deron on that sideline during the Cowboys game. Deron needs to get paid. This is a contract year for Deron. So he's going to go all out. He's going to go balls at the wall. Granted, he's made a ton of money, but he wants to make more. So he has been giving his all during practice, and I've got no doubt he's going to give his all when the season comes up. And I am excited about what I saw from Mathis during camp, being out there and dominating those one-on-one drills. And partially that was because Chase Rouillet wasn't in there and he was going against Wes Schweitzer and other guys that aren't even on the roster, that are on IR, Keith Ishmael and others that aren't there. I am concerned about the defensive ends just because who knows when Chase is going to come back. And then you've got Montez and the other guys on the opposite side of him, just like you mentioned earlier, they don't stay in their lanes and they're giving up big gash plays. And I'm concerned about week 1 versus Jacksonville. But you said linebackers. Mine would have to be cornerback. I am worried about our secondary not being able to keep up because we all know what Fuller can do, but William Jackson still has, I'm not 100% convinced yet. He's looked good in training camp, but you picked our entire defense a couple of minutes ago. But if I got to, zero in, it's the secondary not being able to stay with their players. And Kendall Fuller, when he's doing down and distance, he is lining up right on guys, but Jackson is still giving more of a cushion because he doesn't feel 100% comfortable. And that's what concerns me is we talked about it. Everyone's talked about it. Our third down defense is trash. But a lot of that comes down to our second down defense, 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9. They're getting 5, 6, 7 yards. So we're going up against 3rd and short a ton. So to me, our corners are an issue for us, mainly everybody but Kendall Fuller. And if your corners can't keep coverage for a good 3 seconds, then your defensive line is never going to get home because that ball is just going to be out.
It's going to be out. Yeah. Well, so that leads me to believe if obviously he must be the better of the defensive backs and corners if they're keeping them in versus situational play, taking them out. If the down dictates hypothetically, press, and he doesn't feel comfortable with pressing, but you have a younger guy who does feel comfortable with pressing, then switch him out.
You're not going to switch out a healthy St. Juice for a healthy William Jackson III. It's just St. Juice is not making that money that you paid your big name free agent. And part of the stigma, go ahead.
I was going to say, I get it. But once again, and you're probably going to, you know what? No, I'm going to let you finish your statement and I'll come back.
This goes down to coaches and front office hold too much in regards to draft position and salary. And they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. So they will put a player in if you go back to Landon Collins, they'll put a player in the wrong position just to prove a point at times. Once he moved down to Buffalo nickel because Landon didn't want to play it, once he actually moved down and was playing safety in the box, he had some of the best games he's had in his entire career. But with a William Jackson or someone else, they won't put him in a position to succeed at times, or someone else in that position to succeed, because it would admit defeat to a degree.
Okay. And to that, I'm going to give you my best Yoda impersonation. That is why you failed. Oh, so
you got to watch the YouTube if you're not watching this.
That is why you failed, because I don't want to hear that, man. Do you realize that teams are cutting their first round picks that just aren't panning out? Now, to us, it sounds like, well, why would they do that? Well, obviously they see something else besides what we're seeing. So if that's what it takes, then by all means, put the best man up for the job and get out of your comfort zone of oh, well, we did sign him to this much money and now we got to sideline. If you got to sideline him, you got to sideline him. That's just how it is, man. If you're not cutting the mustard, then you got to sit the pine, man. We've all at some point in time set the pine until we got better. It had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with getting better. And we will continue to fail as long as we have that same mindset.
I agree with you, but that's the mindset of the NFL, unfortunately. That's the mindset of front offices. And
not every team, Ted.
Who?
Not every team, bro.
The
Rams cut people. The Rams cut people. Who else? They just cut the Raiders just cut their lineman, first round draft pick. I mean, it happens, man. It happens. And so, yes, it's happened more. I don't have the stats on the top of my head, but it happens, man. And we need to get out of that mindset. Now, granted, I don't see us pulling Kendall Fuller, but I'm here to tell you, if Kendall Fuller was getting burnt the way that the kid got burnt when we played Baltimore, looking in the backfield on that double move twice, you may have to pull him. Okay, with that being said, did we or did we not bench Antonio Gibson? I think we did. So it can be done.
I hear you. We benched him for another third round pick. All I'm saying is, if we were to bring in who's another stud running back in this league? If we were to bring in another stud running back in this league, they give them the more chances at bats. Those guys get 7 or 8 strikes versus 3 strikes that everybody else gets. And I'm not saying it's right. That's just the league. And you're talking about the Raiders letting go of Alex Leatherwood, that first round pick that was a lineman. It didn't pan out. They wanted to trade him. There's other things in regards to that as to why that happened. Other first round picks that I can think of that get cut, Josh Rosen, don't know why, but there are also first round picks that never should have been first round picks. Jamin Davis never should have been a first round pick. I'm sorry. They screwed up. They never should have drafted him at 19. And that's just a fact.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Or you can draft him the way that you did it, but put him in the position that's best for him to succeed.
Well, you would think that your defensive-minded head coach and your defensive coordinator, one playing for the 85 Bears, would know as a linebacker what it takes to play the position. Well, to me, this once again is why Ron Rivera will fail here, because he is a coach. He is not a GM. And I'm not trying to say Ron is bad at everything. No, he cannot do both. He cannot wear both hats. And that is why a coach-centric, in my opinion, regime will never succeed. A coach is short-sighted on week to week. A GM is about you're 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And Rivera's been here, and we still have the same problem at linebacker. It has not been addressed. And, oh, okay, John Bostic is out there. Great. Does that make you feel better? Doesn't make me feel better. You know, we're going to pick up somebody else's discarded player. I don't want to call him trash, but we're going to pick up a player that was not deemed worthy of making another team's 53. We're going to pick up another linebacker that cleared waivers that 31 other teams didn't want. And we're supposed to think that they're the answer to what we've been missing? No, I don't have faith. And I want to go over, and this is kind of impromptu now, but I want to go over the first 4 games of the season with you, knowing what our 53 is now, knowing what you saw during preseason and what you saw at camp when you were out there with me. Week 1, we got Jacksonville. W or an L?
Based on what I've seen out of Jacksonville, I'm going to say we're going with a W. I'm throwing a W up.
All right. So I'm going to say loss for Jacksonville. And we'll dive in a little further into reasons why next week when we review kind of that game and the look up to that game. But I think Jacksonville, based upon it, right now is just an L. Detroit at Detroit week 2. And I know you've been watching Hard Knocks, so you got a little more info in Detroit than me. What are you thinking?
That one, man, and I hate to go against my team. I think that's going to be an L.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where we're going to, defer on this. I'm going to win versus the Lions. And maybe it's because I haven't seen Hard Knocks or because they're the Lions and I just disrespect that franchise. And 9 out of 10 times, I will always pick us against Detroit. But I think we bounce back and beat the Lions. Now, week 3, Philly comes to DC. Carson gets to play the Eagles on his home turf this time. And hopefully a railing might fall down again and take someone else out on their team, but we'll see.
Dang. Dang.
Hey, whatever advantage we can get, man.
Well, see, I'm gonna go with the win. And the reason why I'm gonna go with the win is because right now, Philly's head is big. Their head is big. They've signed all these players, and they've got, for all intents and purposes, they should win the game. Their head is big. And they have beat us, except for obviously a couple years ago when Peterson gave the game to us. All right. So I see them coming into FedEx. We beat these guys. We've done this to these guys. And besides, who did they pick up? Who do we have? But I think what's going to happen is this is going to be a situation where it's going to be mind over matter, bro. I think that Carson, it will have his mind together, and he's going to make it because it's on his home, like you said, home turf now. So that's what I see happening. I see us squeaking one out against Philadelphia.
I wish I could agree with you. I don't see it. Philly is basically doing what the Rams did last year. They are picking up all this talent. They just acquired C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Saints, a safety. Contract talks broke down with the Saints. He wanted an extension and didn't work out. Well, the Eagles traded and they got him. You know, they picked up A.J. Brown. They had picked up a ton of guys. And Jalen Hurts, even if he can't figure out if he's a running quarterback or a pocket quarterback, I'm sorry, but I think the Eagles are winning the division. And I think they're taking that game. And not to foreshadow a little, but obviously I think the Eagles are going to sweep us because we all know how we do on Monday night. But then again, that might change as we get further down the season and you got some players that are hurt. So right now, you got us at 2-1. I got us at 1-2 through the first 3 weeks.
I'm gonna go back to Detroit. Jalen Hurts doesn't scare me. You want to know who scares me? I'm gonna tell you who scares me. That rookie defensive tackle, Jordan Davis. That's a man beast right there. He scares me. So our linemen better be up for the task against this dude, because this dude is a defensive tackle that moves like Parsons for Dallas.
So that doesn't worry me as much because you can game plan and scheme around a defensive tackle. Remember what, and he's not a defensive tackle, but remember what Bruce Arians did with Chase when we played him in the playoffs in 2020. You know, you can double him. You can do different things to take him out of the game. You can do quick game where you don't have to worry about Carson holding that ball too long, or you can double team him, sit block him with the tight end coming across, chip him with a running back, whatever it may be. To me, just from a overall player perspective, we haven't found an answer to stop Jalen Hurts since he's been on that Eagle team. The only person that stopped Jalen Hurts was Doug Peterson when he took him out of that game because he didn't want to win and he didn't want to get a higher draft pick. So that's the reason why I'm taking Philly over us.
Okay.
But week 4, Dallas, in Dallas. What are you thinking?
Oh man, you're gonna make me say it. I told you, my heart wants us to win, but I think that once again, Dallas's cohesiveness is there, and they will be able to squeak it out. I don't want them to, but I think that's what's going to happen. However, Dallas has made some stupid moves as of late. So if Dallas is going to be Dallas, there's a possibility that we win. It also is going to depend upon, Ted, what's our offense doing? Is Samuels healthy, truly healthy? Will will our rookie be able to catch the ball under pressure? Will Carson be able to get Jahan? Will Carson be able to get the ball to his receivers with that rush that he has? Because he's faced Parsons, I believe, so he knows what he's about. You know, those are the things that I have. And plus, you're playing in Dallas, man. And that stadium can be loud. And it's going to be loud because it's an earlier game. So that's what makes me nervous, man. We've got a lot of ifs. And I say that because, let's face it, I haven't seen them play.
No.
We'll be able to delve deeper into it after the Jacksonville game.
And we will. We'll get further into it. We're going to have a couple of guests on to talk about some of these matchups as we go along through this. And the thing is, hate to break it to Commanders fans, Redskins fans, we're not Dallas's rival. We think that we're Dallas's rival. But Cowboys hate the Eagles. They don't care about us like they used to because we haven't been competitive with them. We haven't been competitive the end of this period. And as of today, I feel that game goes to Dallas and we start the season off 1-3. And people are talking about us starting strong. But from what I saw during preseason, with our defense still being suspect, I don't have a lot of faith. Our offense is going to be better. There's no way around that. You've got a better quarterback. You have better weapons at wide receiver. Jahan, even though he hasn't actually played it down, is still going to somewhat dictate better coverage where they can't just bracket Terry. You know, you hope Logan Thomas will be definitely back and close to 100% as possible by the time that comes around when we get to see them. I mean, saw him today on the practice field and some of the videos, and he's looking good. The thing that concerns me is your starters didn't do much. They didn't score a touchdown on offense. So usually the first 2 games of the year are still preseason for some of these guys. They're still getting conditioning for some of these guys. And it's worrisome because we all know what it's like at FedEx Field in September for a 1:00 game. It is hot. It is humid. It is nasty out there. And we'll find out if these guys are ready. And I hope that we are. And I've got faith that if they're not, coach is going to get them there. But instead of looking at the entire season as a whole, I like breaking it down into quarters to see how we are in this piece versus that, because injuries, things like that will change how everyone looks drastically.
Oh, yeah. It definitely will change the dynamic. Definitely will.
But it's been a crazy, crazy offseason. It's been a crazy preseason and training camp. And we're excited that you guys are jumping on board this crazy train with Rally and I, and appreciate y'all hanging out for episode 14. I'm curious, give us your first 4 games. Let us know who you think or what you think the Commanders' record is going to be coming into week 5. Are you going to be 2-2 like Rally's thinking? Or are they going to be 1-3 like I'm thinking? Or do you have a severe case of Asperger's syndrome and got us going 4-0? Let us know.
What?
Hit us up on Twitter. We really need to hear that feedback from you.
Hey, I'm the rally captain, so I'm going to ride high with the ship, and I will go down with the ship. And I want to thank you guys once again for being here, because you could have been any place else, but you decided to be here at the DMV Mess Hall with myself and Tailgate Ted. So, as in closing, rep it hard, but don't rep it at all. Rally Captain, Tailgate Ted, we're out.